roll now. All right, we are live. Perfect. Hello, everyone on YouTube. So I thought maybe we could just introduce ourselves. I'm just going to kind of call you out in the order that you're on my screen. Just a casual reminder, maybe when we're not chatting, if you could mute your mic so we don't get a lot of background noise or, our phones ring and stuff, just so we can hear folks as clearly as possible would be great. And we did send you the questions in advance. I'll kind of start with those, but we can certainly deviate and what folks are interested in sharing. I'm just really looking forward to this awesome discussion that we're going to have. I'll kick it off. I am Krista Mestel. I'll be your host today, and I'm an outreach instruction librarian at the University of Minnesota Libraries on the St. Paul campus. So, Roseanne, would you mind introducing yourself as
Sure.
backup facilitator?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning where I am. My name is Roseanne Matola. I'm an outreach librarian at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I coordinate co-curricular outreach for our campus. And I'm part of the academic outreach committee, and I'm going to be kind of taking notes and listening in and chiming in when I have some things to contribute today. So welcome.
Awesome, thanks. Yes, please do chime in. How about the tag team group of Christina and Gina?
I'm Christina Chester-Fangman. I'm the coordinator of research and instruction at the Woodward Library at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee. And I am the co-chair of the Exhibits and Displays Committee at the library. And joining me is my co-chair, Gina.
Thank you. I'm Gina Garber, and I am the Digital Services Coordinator at Austin Peay, as well as the co-chair of the Displays Committee.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. How about Jason? I know you said you're in a group office. I don't know if you can take yourself off mute to introduce yourself or if you just want to use the chat feature. Looks like maybe you're typing. Okay, you're going to use chat right now. That works. So we'll just kind of keep in mind on the right-hand side, you can look at the group chat, and I'll, Roseanne, if you can help remind me to read off some of your responses, that would be great. So we welcome your feedback and input. That way we always have a couple of folks that are usually using chat. So thank you. Then how about Ruth?
My name is Ruth Elder. I'm with Troy University Libraries in Troy, Alabama. Was I supposed to say anything else?
And what's your role there?
I'm the cataloging librarian.
Okay.
And I just sort of got exhibits dumped on me.
No problem. Well, you certainly know the collection well as cataloging everything, so it'll be a nice lens that you'll bring to the discussion. Great. And Jason is from Kickler. No, I'm horrible at pronunciation. Marymount University and lead on the outreach and promotions team. Perfect. Oh, and it looks like Laura, oh, she joined and then left. Okay. So perfect. All right. Well, the first question is kind of around exhibits and displays, and do you all set goals for exhibits and displays? I know at our university level libraries, we certainly have goals and just for different units and things, but do you have them for displays and exhibits? And why do you have them? Are they measurable? What kinds of things do you include? So I'd kind of be curious to hear what all your experiences are.
Do you just want us to chime on in?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm not going to call on names from now on. So sometimes you might want to share, sometimes you might not. So feel free to unmute or use chat when you would like to. So yeah, go for it, Christina.
Okay. You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Gina and I were kind of thinking when we were looking at the questions in looking at the goals that we set, we kind of have three big things that we're interested in. We want to draw people to the library from all parts of the campus community and beyond. And we also want to create something that is visually appealing, and we want to teach and inform our users.
Awesome. Thank you. And how about you, Ruth? Did you have anything you wanted to chime in?
Well, I only have one exhibit. Well, actually, it's three exhibits. What we did with the archives, we have a postcard collection. And so Alabama is doing their bicentennial, a 3-year celebration of their bicentennial. So what we did was we took the postcards, we took a section of Alabama postcards and made traveling exhibits.
Oh.
And we did one that focused on the streets, main streets, and another one that focused on buildings. And then, our goal was to get it booked through. So we started in 2016 and we wanted it booked through the end. The actual bicentennial date is December 14th, 2019. So our goal was to get it booked for that. And to let people in the state know about Troy University and about this postcard collection, because in Alabama, basically all you ever hear about is University of Alabama and Auburn. And we wanted to let people know we existed.
Nice, nice. I like that. And it looks like Augustana University joined us from Reese Library.
Hi. Yeah.
Hi, welcome. If you wouldn't mind, like, stating your name and maybe your position, a little introduction.
Sure. We got the week a little bit late, but my name's Thomas Weeks. I'm a reference and instruction library at Augusta University. We're in Augusta, Georgia, so that's where we're at. And I got the question here: is what types of goals that you set for your exhibits and displays? So I think mostly our goals are to highlight our collection with whatever we decide to do, whether it's a display of books or display in special collections or something like that. It's always to highlight what we have available. We tend to do it thematically, and so we'll have that month. For example, this month we have some about women's history and some about Irish American history. So we're highlighting our collections around those things. So usually our goals are to highlight a collection for students, for faculty, for community members. Hopefully get them interested in whatever it is that we're trying to show them, whatever books or materials we have. So that's usually our goals when we are setting up displays, exhibits, things like that.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, and ours are pretty similar. I would say we don't write down formal goals around exhibits and displays usually, other than we have bigger goals that we want to have X amount a year or whatnot. But like all of you said, trying to tie into highlighting our various collections, making it more aware. A lot of what we do, we do a lot of pop-up libraries or things that tie into various events and things around campus. Again, that's trying to make them aware of our collections, but also trying to have the library be viewed as a partner on campus across different things. I don't know, Roseanne, if you wanted to chime in with anything.
Yeah. So we've done in the past a lot of large scale exhibits from our special collections and archives division. We don't really have a dedicated excellent space to do smaller types of displays, but we do have a space on the first floor that we've used for really large scale exhibits. So we recently celebrated 50 years within special collections and archives. So we did a really big semester long display to celebrate all of the unique, rich materials that we have in special collections and archives. And then we tied some events to the exhibit for kind of the external community to be invited to. And then we've done some other ones. We did one on student activism a few years ago. and some on local fiction. So it just kind of depends upon what we want to highlight within our special collections and archives area, and then tying it kind of to maybe something happening on campus or something timely.
Nice, nice. Thanks. All right. I think we heard from most folks. By all means, you can always chime in. So maybe I'll jump down to a little bit more about like organizations and a little bit more behind the scenes of actual planning of exhibits and displays. And I'm kind of curious how you plan them. Do you plan them at a year, multi-year? Do they just kind of come and go when you have time? Do you have a calendaring system, or how you all go about planning for exhibits and displays?
My turn. Well, okay, first of all, we have a partnership. So Christine and I, we work together on this. And I can say that sometimes the most creative displays are the least structured displays that we've done in the past. And I'll give you an example. We did something on Lewis Carroll. And I was actually, I love art and art history, and I was looking at some of the history of photography, and I saw Lewis Carroll's name in there, and I thought, well, wait a minute, is this the Lewis Carroll who's the author? And then by doing more research, discovered he had so much to offer. And since we are a liberal arts university, we felt like a lot of his work kind of covered the liberal arts here at the university. And so what grew out of my personal research turned into something much bigger, and we did a large-scale display for a semester. Do you want to add anything to that? And then some displays are planned for us. For example, every 2 years we do a celebration of scholarship, and that's with our faculty publications. And we've actually expanded that to more than just faculty. We include our staff and students. And then we also do tie-ins with special recognitions for like Black History Month or Women's History Month. Anything else?
Do you want to go ahead and talk about the GSA?
Go ahead. You
no, that was because you're co-advisor for that group.
Okay.
Too, so.
Of course, we as librarians here, we wear many hats, and we're both co-advisors to student groups. And I just recently became a co-advisor to the Gender and Sexuality Alliance group, and they were celebrating their 40th anniversary of that group taking our university to court to be recognized as an organization. Our university would not recognize them. So in celebrating that huge milestone, we did a huge scale display, from putting flags up. We used all the space, the ceilings, the some things hanging down halfway through, you know, the ceiling to the floor, and display cases. And so that really wasn't something that normally we would have done in February. We would have celebrated Black History Month. But because of that milestone, we had this opportunity to celebrate. Of course, we had a lot of media too that was there. But I also want to say, we didn't forget about Black History Month. We did a small scale, we have these little kiosks that we keep in the front at the entrance to the library, and we had a smaller scale Black History Month display. It did cause some controversy. We did have students who asked why we didn't do something big for them. And we together, we always discuss everything that we do together, and then with our director. And we wrote a very nice letter back and stated that we did have a smaller scale display, but because this only happens, you know, this is the time we had to actually celebrate the 40th anniversary, that's why we focused on the GSA organization.
Very nice, thanks.
This is Thomas. I can go next. So I partner with two other people in my library to work on displays and exhibits. And we generally, at the beginning of the year in January, maybe late December, create a spreadsheet for each month. And so we do them on a monthly basis, rotating out. And we kind of fill in a general idea of which ones we want to do. We have several display cases, and so we kind of say, we want this one to go here this month, this one to go here this month. for like those kind of ones we know we're going to do. For example, we knew we wanted to do the Women's History Month this month, and in June we're going to do LGBT history, or whatever. So those ones that we know we're going to do, we fill those in, and then we kind of open it up to other people. If they have interest in doing a display, we say, hey, we have this availability. Is anyone interested? Also, since people know that we are in charge of that, they will send us their ideas. Hey, we want to do a display on this specific split space. Is there room there? And we can say yes or no for that. And so it's really about kind of managing spaces. We use a spreadsheet on a shared kind of drive. It's in Box. And so we kind of look at that and see what's available, where is available, what can be done. We also do sometimes pop-up exhibits where if there's something going on, there's already something booked for a specific space. We might get a cart or an extra table, stick it out in the lobby, and put it there. Our special collections also does pop-up exhibits at university events. And so if we're having a play or a symposium or something like that, she may go over there and do a pop-up exhibit on location with materials from the collection. So it's just about managing. Our kind of management is just managing spaces and ideas and where we want things to go at any given time. We're pretty flexible when it comes to that. We don't have a very strict outlook on that, but we try to keep it as managed as possible so that there's always something up in every available space. We have multiple locations for displays, and so we try to make sure there's something in them at all times. And if there's not, we try to find people to put something in them. And that's all from me.
Yeah, we just, since I'm on the St. Paul libraries, we certainly have a big display area where we schedule out like 2 to 4 big exhibits for like our special collection and archives in the main spot. So that's a big draw, and they plan years in advance for that big exhibit space in that library. But in the St. Paul libraries, we have kind of smaller exhibits spaces as you kind of enter. We use a Google Calendar internally to kind of schedule things out. And we have spreadsheets to kind of keep track of ideas, because that's what we're always like, what should we do? Sometimes, it gets a little rusty. So it's that's been helpful for us to just have a spreadsheet where we keep ongoing things. And then this past year, we just decided to make one case actually be our student worker case. So we have student workers work on just very small. It's just like a tabletop one. But a couple of our student workers really love being empowered and like choosing something and just running kind of crazy with that exhibit. So that's been kind of helpful to they'll poll their other student workers on what theme should be the next one, and then kind of build it out that way. But Google Calendars and Google Sheets is super helpful, we found, for us at least.
Well, my situation's a little different because mine was for a 3-year period. I'm not a part of the archives. So I just did these 3 traveling exhibits. And so we booked them out, and I had a nice calendar I stuck on my wall and just put who was going to be where. So all of you people are the people I was contacting to say, hey, would you like my exhibit for a month? So that's what I did. It's just one simple thing.
We are just sort of expanding our promotions right now. We're a small library, so we're doing a lot more pop-up events, and sort of we trying to get the display cases that have been moved out of the library back into the library so we can use them as we clear out the 2nd floor for a space just for students. So it'll be sort of an ongoing challenges, but we use a lot of Google Calendars and a lot of like suggestions from other staff members to do things.
I'd like to say something about the space, something that we didn't share with you. We actually do not have a specific location for library displays. So we actually, our displays can end up anywhere. So in the library, but most of the time we have them in our info commons area. So the display could be right in the middle of, it's really difficult to express so you understand, but we have long rows of computers and tables, and we might be able to put a display case in there.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle, yeah. And then that's why I go in and I also use the space around there, like the ceiling, the, maybe the walls even. I do want to say that we are very good at utilizing our space that we have, because we also, we used to be a small library. We are one of the fastest growing universities in Tennessee. And so our building, we've outgrown our building. And so I have to really find areas for the space. But so far, it's been very successful. And do you have anything you want to say to that? Okay, thank you.
I kind of love that, like getting it outside of the cases and getting it like in where the students and the people are, rather than like ours are kind of like in the hall entrance where people kind of run past and whatnot, but where people are congregating and spending the time. One thing we did in a couple of the previous ones, because some of these sound great, like the postcard exhibit, I would love to see it. And I'm sure you all have some photographs, or maybe you have a website or something. So I will, or maybe Roseanne can pop in our email address, and the one that you all got the reminder today. If you do have like a LibGuide or a website or a couple pictures from an exhibit that you really love, that would be really awesome to put in the notes. And then on ALA Connect, we're going to post the notes so other people can get some inspiration possibly from you all, because I think visuals is the best way. So yeah, that uls.aoc@gmail.com if you want to share some visuals or links and things. You can always post links in the chat too, but that would be really, that sounds very inspiring. Personally, I would just like to learn and kind of visually see that to maybe give us some ideas, because there's nothing saying I couldn't move some of these smaller cases into a little bit more flexible space with my facilities people's permissions and things. So I love it. Might move us along to the kind of pulling together. I think we have a variety of people represented. So Christina and Gina, you mentioned that you're on a committee and other folks have committees. And that, Ruth, you've appear to be a one-woman show potentially working on this. So I'd love to hear kind of how you all have it set up. I kind of mentioned that I do some coordination. I work with our communications committee to kind of brainstorm things, and then use student workers as well. But if you all wanted to share any other tips or tricks, or how you have it set up at your institution, that would be great.
I'm not totally a one person, but I did the majority of it, and I do all of the booking. But I did work with a professor in the Troy University art department, and he's the one that designed all the banners. And I'll be very, very happy to post pictures so you can see them. Mainly my other people were there for proofing, because I wrote a lot of captions and I wanted to make sure that I wrote it. And so I also had a history professor who made sure I didn't say anything stupid. So I did have people helping.
For our larger scale exhibits, which I have never coordinated or taken the lead on, typically we kind of have somebody that's in charge of curating and deciding what content goes into the display. And then they have worked in the past with a committee of experts, some communications related, like getting the marketing and promotion materials out and creating a message about the display or the exhibit. And then some folks involved with like editing the captions. And then sometimes we've outsourced some of the work that has to be done to either enlarge or create some of the visuals because they've been exhibits that have been up for 3 or 4 months at a time. For these kinds of larger scale projects, we've typically done them on a semesterly basis, and then the committee that works all together, kind of, they all have defined roles and deliverables, but there's usually one person that's kind of the driving force behind the exhibit itself.
Yeah, although we are the committee, the two of us, Gina really is kind of the creative force behind the group. She's the idea person. She has a background in art, and so she does all of the visuals. I do more of the editorial content, like kind of proofing things, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So it kind of starts that way with an idea, and then we kind of go out and look then at our collections and kind of see, you know, what we have, what can we incorporate in, what other little pieces of memorabilia and things like that can we pull in. We go to our colleagues for that. For instance, recently we did a superhero display, and so we brought in books from the collection about superheroes, but then we reached out to our colleagues and let them bring in, you know, their little pop vinyl figures and things like that that they had to just kind of make it fun.
And although we did something on superheroes, we do have archives, and we do pull in our archives for our displays, but we also feel sometimes it's good to have hot topics, you know, what's going to speak to our students, and we'll discuss, hey, you know, what superhero movies out there, and that's why I want you to know there's a little bit of background of superheroes instead of just saying we're going to bring in these little figurines. I hope that made sense.
This is Thomas again. So I do work on a committee with 2 other people. I don't know that we would even call ourselves a committee. We're kind of informal committee, I guess. We just kind of do it because we like it, and we're the only people who wanted to do it. But we tend to have different styles. I tend to be more serious when it comes to displays. I want these very academic and interesting things, and my colleagues tend to be more creative as far as like those fun things, like bringing in little, like you're talking about, bringing in like the little figurines, or bringing in little toys to put in the displays, or buying decorations for them. And so we kind of have a good collaboration. So we try to tend to space it out. So sometimes we'll have more fun ones. Sometimes we'll have more quote unquote serious ones, or ones that are more interactive. Sometimes we have some that are interactive. And so just having different kinds for different personalities. So it's good to kind of work on a team to have different personalities, different interests, to find ways to incorporate all those things, because there's all kinds of students too who enjoy different kinds of things.
Yeah, I love that point of incorporating more people to get more ideas and voices around the table. That's a great thought. Let's see. Any others? I think most folks had it. Again, I'm just kind of working our way through, but we certainly can jump back and forth. I'm kind of curious, do you have any standards or guidelines or policies for library exhibits and displays? And I think part of this, I know our other week, it's a little further down, but and how does maybe accessibility kind of tie into that? One person mentioned, you know, captions, typing those up, making them, you know, kind of large enough and things. But if you're doing interactive exhibits, I'm kind of curious what all your thoughts are around any policies or procedures that you have, and then kind of the accessibility pieces.
I'll go ahead and answer first here. Our university has a policy on academic freedom. So even though we have that, we try to keep our displays, I guess, theme appropriate for our university. And the reason behind that, because again, I mentioned we don't have like a room for exhibits. We don't have an area for exhibits. When you go into a gallery, a person knows they're going into a gallery, they know what they're going to see. But when you're coming into a library, you are forced to be in that display area. So if something maybe is a little bit more offensive, we have to be a little more sensitive to that, because they can't really leave. They need a computer. They need to have service there. So we might come up with an idea, and I will say Christina's had to censor me. um, so we had a swear word in one of our displays, and what we just did is covered up part of it with felt. And because you really need, although we normally would not put a swear word in a display, it was really a big part of that display. So what else can I say about
really
that?
kind of a balance.
Yeah, it is a balance. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about accessibility because that's why we created traveling exhibits. Parking on our campus is horrible. And we wanted, because it was part of the bicentennial, we wanted to take the exhibits to the people. And that's why we connected a lot with public libraries and museums. And we made it a very flexible exhibit. So it was easy for people to transport, and it was easy for them to set up wherever in little bitty spaces or larger spaces. But we wanted it accessible to where they were so they wouldn't have to travel far.
That's great. Yeah, I love that idea of thinking about the population and exploring new populations and making them aware and thinking through that. Yeah, thanks.
We do have guidelines. This is Thomas. We do have guidelines. Like it's a document that people can access to see. They're very not strict guidelines. They're basically let us know when you're going, if you want a display, this is how you book a display. This display should include things from the collection, or should be thematic, or something to do with university or the local area, or something that's going on in the world. Just some very basic, so we don't get these kind of, because sometimes we have students or staff members who are part-time and they don't necessarily see the displays that we do all the time, so they may need some little more structure. We've also done online components of the displays. So I might build a LibGuide to go along with the display with more information about the books or the topic or something like that. Our special collections has done online exhibits as well, where it's on digitized materials and they put them into a display, I don't know, folder collection in Omeka. So as far as accessibility goes, I don't know that that's something that we have necessarily thought about in our displays as far as captions and things. We don't always have captions. Sometimes we do. I don't know if that's something we've thought about doing necessarily. I keep looking at my person who's here with me to see if she has any thoughts about that. But yeah, I don't. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I will say that that is not, at least on the smaller display scale at our individual libraries, not hasn't been on the forefront of our mind as much as it probably should be around accessibility. I think they do for kind of the bigger archive special collections where it's a much grander scale that's planned out a lot more. But since these conversations were happening, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like redo those captions in my cases, and even if that means I have to take out a few items to kind of provide a little bit more visual spacing and things, to not be quite so cluttered and a little bit more edited and clean and allow for bigger captions. I think I'm definitely going to do that based on some of you all's suggestions from this one and in the past. And I love the idea of LibGuides. If you have a great example that you want to share with us, that would be great. Any other thoughts around those? Otherwise, we've kind of mentioned before working with like art departments and art history and student groups and things. But I'm just kind of curious, have you worked, who else are kind of your likely partners across campus that you've worked with, either across your institution or outside of your institution? What are some of those partnerships? I love the idea of partnering, with local libraries and museums to do a traveling exhibit or even to co-create things. I know here we've kind of worked with like Institute on the Environment is right next door, and they've had some displays, and then we'll kind of like balance that and create some displays that tie in so people can kind of go back and forth. And I was wondering if other folks have some good examples that they'd want to share around partnerships.
This is Christina. We do a couple of partnered exhibits probably every academic year. There are some that are kind of regularly scheduled. For example, Zone 3, our local literary press, they come every month, every April to do a display for National Poetry Month. So we work with them on that. And we know kind of every April that's coming, but a couple of times we've kind of reached out to do some other partnerships on campus. A really cool one that we've done probably twice, 2 or 3 times, was we partnered with our Office of Undergraduate Research to do a research forum, and we had the student posters on display, as well as hosting some speaker sessions where we had faculty talk about student research, and then we had students come in and talk about their research as well.
We also have partnered with other faculty on campus. We have faculty that are international. And so we've maybe had someone come in that, let's just say they're from Cameroon, and they might have some items from their country. They might bring them in here. We could put those up for display. And we've also, we partnered with organizations. We have an organization called, well, it's not an organization anymore. We have a program called the P-Read, and that is a common reading program that we have on campus. And we've had competitions where we would take their writing, they could write an essay, they could do something creative, 3D or 2D, and we would display that, and that would be part of the whole program. And usually the guest speaker or the guest author would come into our library and look at the display before going over to addressing the entire university. Did I miss anything?
No, thank you.
Okay.
This is Jason, and just saying that we are trying to reach out to our School of Fashion at Marymount and actually they have a yearly fashion show that is judged by the professors and such, and we're hoping that we can get the winning designs and some of the top designs in the library for at the end of this, after the show, just so they have a place that they can show things, and also to get students to come in. And we have a lot of things from former students on our walls. I'm trying to replace that with current students because I think it's more interesting for a student to bring their parent in and say, this is what I'm doing, here's my work being displayed, versus someone who graduated 20 years ago who has not come back in since. I'm trying to make it more of a current exhibit as opposed to a past exhibit.
Nice. I wish you much luck on that, Jason. We have fashion design across the street. We haven't displayed their winning things because there's an actual like fashion museum there that they do, but we do have like the art, studio art, and other classes do display all of their kind of senior projects all throughout the libraries as kind of one of the exhibit areas. So it's a wonderful partnership, and just it breathes life into the library with so much creativity. So I love that idea of switching it to more current students than alumni.
I was just going to share that we have tried something that has not necessarily been easy to implement, but we have some digital screens on one of our floors that we added to create like a digital exhibit space a couple of years ago. And we've curated some digital displays and exhibits. Most recently, we did a big project to share faculty research. So somebody published a book on national parks, and we were able to use some of the content from his book and some of the images from his research to highlight his work. And I think the idea is that hopefully we could curate and create some exhibits to showcase student work. But it is very time intensive to develop the actual digital exhibits. And so it's something that I don't know that we have fully figured out a plan of how to move forward, but it's been something that now we have this dedicated space that we can use in that way.
Are they like kind of like looped movies, basically? That kind of
They
show?
can be, yeah. There's 4 digital, like large LCD screens, like in the open student area.
Okay.
And you can actually plan content for like all 4. You can plan different content for different screens. And so what we have developed like a video, a sequence of things that highlights this particular faculty member's research. And then we've done a different variation of it. And then we've also used the space to highlight student academic work, like in like a digital poster session at the end of the semester. So we're kind of figuring out different ways to use those screens. But the staffing time and the development time involved has become an obstacle, I think, that we're facing.
Nice. We just got those, but not in my libraries, but over in our larger library, Wilson Library, and they're kind of like, what do we do? So that's a great example. I'm totally going to tell them about that. Any other partnerships that folks want to share about?
Sure, I'll talk about some partnerships we've had.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Confucius Institute. It's a program out of China that partners with different universities around the US, and we have one here on our campus. And we have got lots of materials from them around mainly traditional Chinese medicine and other artifacts around like Tai Chi and things like that. And so we have those on kind of a semi-permanent display. They're in here on display until they decide they want to take them back in a special case, along with some of their materials they have gifted us. We also have partnered with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion on our campus. That's most recently for Black History Month. They were involved in kind of a programming series that we did. So we did displays and exhibits of Black history, books or stuff from our special collections, and then they gave us some money to do some programming. So we had people from the local Black History Museum, some professors from the English department, and then some speakers from diversity and inclusion come in to talk about different things around Black history. So that was a partnership we did. So all of our display cases during the month of February on all of our floors and all of our places were dedicated to that in different thematic ways. We've also partnered with specific classes. I can remember we did one with an education class with children's literature. They had to create shoes, I believe. They had to like paint shoes that were inspired by children's books. And so those were on display in the library for some time, along with the children's book and then the shoe that was inspired by that book. We've also done art displays. A lot of you mentioned those. We have on our second floor kind of an art gallery area. It was out of commission for a while because we were doing renovations, but we were getting our first new exhibit in like 2 years, I think, starting next month. So it's student work. I think it's student senior exhibitions, and so they'll be up for several months in that gallery space. So we're excited about that, to have those back.
Nice. I've heard of, edible books, which we have a big cookbook collection. I've always wanted to do it, but going back to policies and procedures, our facility, folks are a little unsure about that. But I love the shoe idea. I've never heard of that before.
We did something with the cookbooks as well. It wasn't a partnership, but our special collections librarian, she had got from the Special Collections Archives, she got old recipes, and from either from cookbooks or from manuscript collections, whatever. And the different librarians on staff made the recipes following the old recipes. It was very difficult. And then we had like an event where students could come and try them and look at the old recipes and taste the food. And that was very fun. It was interesting because not all of them tasted very good.
Yep, we have that going on right now with our Wagenstein library. They actually were featured in the New York Times because they partnered with a local distillery that made specific spirits to like go back to these old cocktail like medical remedies that were in these medical texts that they kind of recreated modern day. I haven't tasted them. I'm very curious, but they've had several events partnering with a local distillery and our art museum and all sorts of stuff. So interesting. Yeah. Other thoughts folks have?
I just wanted to mention also that we have Marymount has a farmers market that runs most of the summer and into the fall. So we actually are going to partner with them to do. We have a large juvenile collection because we have a teaching college. So we're actually going to take things out to the farmers market. And as we are open to the public, as if you're an Arlington County resident, you can check books out. We're going to use it to promote the collection. We'll also just have like a story time for some of the farmers markets because it's a way to get people who live within a few miles of us knowing that we are here and what they can get from us.
I love that. Well, we have like 10 minutes left and there's lots of different things we could chat about. These are all great ideas. So I'm two kind of themes that, and feel free to choose one maybe to chat about or both. Kind of like, how do you promote your exhibits and displays? And we've kind of chatted about that a little bit. And then do you do any assessment around exhibits and displays? Those are kind of two key areas we haven't quite addressed yet.
I will talk a little bit about assessment. We don't do a whole lot, I have to be honest. However, I have had peer reviews done of displays. So perhaps, well, I'll give an example. I did one of the history of our institution when we had a brand new president coming in, and the two faculty members from the history department who also wrote a book about the history of our campus came over and peer reviewed. And that was good. That was nice to have that kind of feedback. Other than people coming in and telling us if they like something or if they are annoyed by something, that's all we really have. Do you want to say anything about that? Okay.
Would like to down the road do more.
We would.
Yeah.
We don't really know how to access it. I guess you could look at your door count. During this display, did we have more people come in through the door? We also have Starbucks, so is it us or Starbucks? So I don't know, but we are all ears if you have suggestions.
We actually just had a pop-up event where we collected a lot of fiction because we're a small library and don't have a large fiction collection, but our students keep asking for it. So what we did is we created a giveaway. We just had tables of fiction where they could come in. We assessed it by checking the door counts, which was the only way, but we also assessed by what books were taken, what genres were most interesting, and what the students then asked for. And we collected we had a giveaway of a signed copy of a book that was relatively new and popular. So we collected a lot of emails for that and followed them up with a survey saying, what did you like about the event? What didn't you like? What would you like to see? And we're using all that information to sort of build a request for funding to increase certain areas of our fiction collection. Specifically, science fiction was the most popular.
We decided, I mean, there was a lot of things, once again, because ours is traveling, it makes it a little different. And we could have asked the venues who were hosting to like keep count and those kind of things. But we decided not to do anything like that because we wanted to make it as easy for people to host as absolutely possible. So we didn't ask anything of them. So I have, other than the fact that it is booked out and I keep getting more requests for it, I have no way of assessing how good or bad it is.
Yeah, I guess at our institution, like you said, like counting if we have an event and seeing how many people come to that event that's tied to an exhibit and gate counts and things. Otherwise, we try to do a lot of whiteboard questions or post-it questions that tie into the exhibit or display where folks can like write down a reflection on what they thought and kind of post it adjacent to the exhibit or write kind of as you walk in. We have a big whiteboard and we'll ask questions that are kind of related. One time I did like a little worksheet, and if you filled that out that's kind of related to it, then you got entered into like a drawing. But yeah, they're a little bit harder to do. So if anyone else has any other thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, we mostly use social media, like Facebook and Instagram are our big ones. We're not really, our institution isn't on Snapchat yet, unfortunately, like not the libraries at least. So we're not on there yet, but social media and Twitter a little bit. But for exhibits and displays, we definitely try to push harder on the Instagram since it's nice visuals. So yeah, that's a little of what we do.
For displays, normally, if they're just a kind of run-of-the-mill, quote-unquote, display, we won't do any kind of like social media posts. It's usually maybe during the middle of the month or towards the end of the month. We'll say, come check out the exhibit before, or this display before it goes away, or something like that. Because if it's a bigger exhibit that's maybe tying in more stuff or staying for longer, we'll usually do social media ahead of time, but also we'll do print promotions, and we'll post them around campus. Hey, come see this exhibit. And especially if there's like an event tied to the exhibit, maybe a panel or a discussion. We had an exhibit about Shakespeare, and we did a panel discussion, and I promoted that for like a month at a time with all sorts of like flyers and little pamphlets and things like that. So it just really depends on what it is and the size and scale of it and what we're doing with it, how we promote it. Social media always in some way, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We don't have a Snapchat either, so we'll fill you on that. But also posters and flyers, you know, those people still see those and they're still around. There's still places for those, and so we do those as well.
I just wanted to comment about partnerships. We got a grant from the Alabama Humanities Foundation. So they helped to fund it, but they're also going to do a social media blitz on our newest exhibit that's coming out like next week. So we're very appreciative of that partnership.
We actually promote our displays through a number of ways. Some of them you already said, through our social media. I usually go ahead and create our posters, and we do big posters. When we do something, we do it big. It's usually 11 by 17 inch posters, and those are put out in the dorms and the buildings, and we have message boards that they're put on. We also have a campus marquee that's outside of our student union, and we can have something scrolling there. We can actually put an image on there. And we also, we have a campus announcement through email. It used to be called the Gov Says. I can't remember what it's called now though. And then depending on the display, like for our GSA display we just did, we do press releases, and that gets a lot of our word out through television and our local student television channel. And radio, yes.
We've had some success also with putting out a press release about the exhibit when we've had like a big event, and sometimes we've had our local paper come in and highlight the exhibit and promote it to the public that way, which we've been very fortunate. Our director of communications has worked hard to, I think, build rapport with the local reporters to come in and highlight our work.
Those are awesome ideas. I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about working with our local, the student like radio before. So that's giving me some ideas. I want to be mindful of time because we're at the top of the hour here. So by all means, if you have further questions or comments, you can send them to uls.aoc@gmail.com. And I would love to see some of these examples that you have been talking about. So if you want to choose a couple and send them there so we can pretty up our summary notes and give some folks some ideas, we would welcome that. Otherwise, I really thank you all for the great discussion the past hour. Again, we'll post the notes to ALA Connect, and I'm going to send out a survey here in like 5 minutes. So if you have a couple minutes, and if there's anyone else in the room with you, feel free to share it with them. We'll ask you your feedback on this Hangout chat, but also if you have any ideas for future topics that you'd like us to discuss, we're always looking for planning for fall, what we want to pursue next. Otherwise, if you're going to ACRL or ALA, I'll be there. So if you see me, stop me and say hi. I would love to meet you in person. But if anyone has any closing thoughts, you can. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day or spring break if you're on spring break, or when you do have spring break. So
we want to say thank you for giving us an opportunity to share our information, and we learned and took some notes on what you all said too.
We have some great ideas. I wish we could go for another hour. I've enjoyed it so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.